It's important to talk about this because we live in a society where a lot of people are dark and disconnected from reality, and oftentimes the isolation and loneliness causes them to dive into a sort of depression state, which there's a loneliness epidemic, which you probably know about by now, considering the type of society we live in, even in like the urban monoculture, meaning like cities and like the city conglomerate being one thing, which is really noticeable, at least in America. I'm not quite sure about globally, but there's that. And then there's also this is much more globally, is this idea of everyone's sitting inside and communicating through the cell phone, which often leads to misguided messages, and it doesn't lead to person X saying A instead of B, right? So this makes gratitude important because it's one of the very few things that allows people to connect with each other on a person-to-person basis, whether it's over the phone or whether it's in person. You can do it either way. And for most people, it would be much more comfortable doing it over the phone at first, which is okay. We'll get into that later. Like some things they might want to avoid while doing that. But for a starting point, being grateful is difficult for most. Why? I offer this question because there's 2 points that make this true. Number one is that most people value the present emotion over future relationships, whether they know about this or not. As they travel through life, oftentimes if somebody makes them feel a certain way, they will, even if they want to like connect with that person, if their first impression or if their like welcoming aura, if that makes sense, or the presence feels a weird way, what they'll try to do is they'll try to maneuver away from it and leave immediately, instead of just sticking through the first 2 minutes of perhaps awkwardness and be able to have a deep, fulfilling conversation with you, if that is the goal you happen to have, which I happen to have. But I notice this all the time because since I kind of fall into this category, unfortunately. But like when I walk into a room, I can feel the entire like presence of the room changes when I walk in compared to when anyone else walks in. It's really weird. It's like a power of sorts. It's kind of cool, but you know what I'm talking about when that one person in that group of people walks into a room and everything changes. That's basically what I do. It's being the first person of that, and I can tell you this, it doesn't feel like you have power, but it feels like you do. It's this weird combination of having the ability to kind of like talk with anybody and like, or say something drastic that will shift the mood of the room entirely, or it's the ability to have everyone's attention to you. Like I can command that like very quickly. So it's a cool thing, and I recommend that you should practice that, or at least try to like just be more, not extroverted, but definitely be more like socially attentive and present, because it actually causes a lot of people to gravitate towards you, and it's a really nice feeling. Anyways, sorry for that rant. I'm gonna go back now. So they value the present emotion over their future relationships, and obviously we see that, we discussed that a couple of minutes ago, and this effect usually leads to isolation and loneliness, especially with the phone now, because now everyone wants to see the hot woman and only talk to her, but in reality there's only one of them, and there's probably about like, at least 150 guys and probably another 150 girls around that person. So it's the ability to understand that yes, that person is probably valuable in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully not just as the person's figure, we'll say, but as the actual person's person. But that's a whole nother discussion. And it's the reason why, like, minus the primal ability to select somebody out, it's the reason why people have horrible relationships nowadays. Like, the dating market's super competitive. Everyone's looking for the rich guy. Everyone's looking for X, Y, and Z. But they often, like, almost all of them have skipped the person, which has been to their detriment. I mean, I think the stats now, I don't remember, you can test me on this, but I believe from what I heard is that, like, almost 60% of women aren't having children. Like, by the time they actually get somebody and they have, like, a marriage, I guess, whether that be religious, government, so on and so forth, is that, what was I going to say? It's that they're past the woman's fertility window to have a child at that point. Because when the woman was young, or even like for a guy, right? I mean, a guy's fertility window is much longer. So realistically, as a man, you can kind of live with this lifestyle. But then there's a totally different point about estrogenics, which I'll go into at some point. I might go into it in this video later. I'll write it down right now, because I happen to have like a little thing where I like put the points down that I want to talk about in this video. So I'll bring that up later. But basically, another thing that even you see me just struggle with it just now, is that a second point of the difficulty of being grateful is that people are unable to focus for too long to remember what they're actually doing. And you've seen in me just here where I kind of just went on two side tangents for about like 4 or 5 minutes while like right there, right? Well, this is just like, I'm pretty smart. I usually remember things. It's just like, I gotta like focus, right? Focus. Okay. And it's just they're not long enough to remember what they're doing. So they'll literally a good example of this is when people are having a conversation and then someone pulls out their phone and then everyone else starts pulling out their phone and then no one remembers what they're talking about like 5 minutes later. Sorry, that was like really fast, but to slow it down for any audience who didn't understand what I just heard. When one person in your conversation pulls out your phone and then everyone else starts doing the same thing, it causes distractions, and then later, maybe not even by like minutes, no one even remembers what they were doing. So especially if someone wants to do something difficult, or like what seems to be difficult to them, like being grateful for somebody, they have to put a lot of focus and energy into that. But if they haven't cultivated that skill and they've just cultivated distractions, what happens is they become very emotional and then they act upon that present emotion that we just talked about. So with those 2 points aside though, gratitude is very beneficial. And a lot of you would probably ask, probably a lot of you already know, oh yeah, well, it makes a relationship better, so on and so forth. It makes maybe, oh yeah, I think I heard it makes also your mental health better or something. Like, okay, fair. But there's also a lot of other points that most people don't cover on the actual value of gratitude for yourself. Because obviously, a lot of people in this modern culture, everyone's doing something for themselves. So the ability to do something for somebody else is very high valued, and a lot of people would be super grateful for having this ability or skill, right? So the first thing that how gratitude benefits your relationships is it actually improves the quality of them by checking other people's intentions. And you can use this to know if they should be left behind or if they should be kept with you as you go along whatever journey you're going on, right? Now, most people, this is where the part where earlier where I was talking about it was over the phone. the gratitude over the phone, it's a lot more difficult to tell the real intentions of somebody over the phone. So this point really benefits people for in-person gratitude speaking, or even if you write it down on a piece of paper and give it to somebody and sit there. I think that actually, the second one I just mentioned, is really powerful, because when somebody's reading something, they immediately become self-centered, and they don't like think, oh yeah, that person's actually watching like my expressions, right? So if you sit there and you observe, like, don't like be like this and like fucking terrify them, but just like kind of like glance over and just like, oh yeah, okay, he's reading it, she's reading it. Oh, you see that face expression, and then you're like, oh, and then you can see the tone and afterwards, and if it matches that expression, then you know, okay, well, she's honest, but maybe she's not, maybe she doesn't really care about this, or she's honest and she does care about this. Or if it mismatches, then you know that obviously that person's untrustworthy. So it's a really cool way to check your like quality of relationship with somebody, whether it be sexual, non-sexual, parents, so on and so forth. And that's a really cool ability to like see, especially as like an observer. I don't know, like I've done it a couple times, and it's very interesting to see. So that's that. Another point is that it starts a positive belief mindset. And what I mean by this is getting the ability to say something positive to somebody else makes it a hell of a lot easier to say it to yourself. So when you're going about your day and you're like, oh, whatever negative click is happening in your mind, you can actually reverse engineer the gratitude you gave to somebody else and put it inwards. Since humans are weird enough to be able to distinguish between their own being and the emotion that is like, it's almost like a different character, right? So I think it's kind of odd allow me to go on a side tangent here. I think it's really odd that human emotions are able to almost form a separate being inside of our own minds, since emotions are usually supposed to be felt throughout the body. But since people have become like, especially like my generation, millennials, right? Even some older people too, their minds have become a lot more separated, and you can see how the separation causes the emotion to feel as if it's a different being rather than it's you actually experiencing it. Anyways, going back now. So when you start this positive belief mindset accompanied with action and not just wishful thinking, you basically get this compounding graph of whatever direction you want to go. You have a positive belief system towards, okay, I'm going to go this way, and then the success, right, of whatever venture you're going into. And obviously this will seriously help your self-esteem, because if you're just like most people suffering the loneliness epidemic that I talked about, you're probably not feeling the best in the world, but you know that you could be worse, but I just gave you a simple key that you can use to be better. And even if you don't be grateful for somebody first, you can still at least try to practice being grateful to yourself. It's just it won't be as high quality as it would be if you have shown gratitude to somebody else, even if it's like not like the show, it's like a stranger. I mean, if you want to, go for it. Like, do not stop because I said that, right? Like, you got to keep in mind, I'm learning too, right? We're all people that are learning on this planet because we're all too stupid to know things. But besides that, these things will also help you with your self-esteem. And then one last point I want to bring up, how gratitude benefits your relationships in a way that benefits yourself and others, is that as long as you know how to listen, right? If you know to just like wait for that person to fully talk about what they're talking about, which I'll talk about that later as well. I'll talk about that after the estrogenics part. When people know how to really get into that ability to listen, you can enter an argument or debate, since presuming you've already shown your gratefulness for this in like a separate scenario, right? When you enter this debate or like argument, even if it gets a little escalated, because like emotions, people don't know how to control them. Like I said, we're too stupid to know things. So the other person will be much more likely to hear you out because you've shown that you're capable of providing a positive enforcement onto the things that they like about you. So apologies, but I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I'm back now. But being able to have that capability to, wait, no, what was I? That's right, when you enter an argument, you're much more likely to hear you out. Yeah, right. So they will be much more likely to hear you out on your points. So when you're going through the motion of, oh, point XYZ, obviously you still have to listen to them, because if you stop listening to them in an argument, that obviously leads to usually some sort of verbal confrontation, which isn't so friendly, since you're both just blocking each other's points and then nothing makes sense. Trust me, like whenever I hear my parents, like, they're not like argue. When you say arguing, you get that really negative connotation. But like, I'm talking about the halfway argument, right? Not like the I'm going to stab you type of argument, but like the kind of more serious than why did you mess with the coffee type of argument, right? It's somewhere in the middle. And when I see them do this, you can almost, if you observe it and you're not trying to like respond to it in your own head, which I'm guilty of, but when you sit there and you observe it, you understand that their points actually don't really make too much sense beyond the first layer. When you think about the second, the third, the fourth layer of their arguments, it just sounds completely irrelevant and stupid. And it's like, when you can't think outside of the first layer of the box, pretend your mind's a box, it really detriments you in a way where you can't have any long-term fulfillment in whatever venture you're doing, right? So with these three points out, I think it is much more valuable to show your gratitude over not showing it because of that little like 10 seconds of awkwardness you first get. Trust me, it's a very short period of awkwardness. It's nothing compared to what you think it is in your head. So another point or another section I want to really emphasize to you is that there's also nonverbal gratitude. I don't mean like over text, I mean like literal like body language gratitude. It's a weird concept, but not many people have talked about it. And I think a really good one is, if like you can't be like manipulative about it, you have to like be real, because people can see like, oh, why is this guy like doing what he's about to do, like, or what I'm about to say to you is like fucking weirdo. But it's head nods and smiles like at the same time. These really show. I'm not gonna do one because that's gonna be really weird. You'll see you'll know the fakeness. So, but it's this idea that make sure, as long as it's real, it shows the other person that you're grateful for their presence by simply just doing that action. It's, but yeah, I think that's all I want to bring up with that. And then another one is like subconscious cues, which I notice that women will tend to notice this a lot more than men do, but it's my rough idea of it is that it's like the kind of like the little muscles that like twitch when you walk into a room and you kind of feel a certain way. If you walk into a room and you feel grateful, certain muscles will twitch and relax, allowing you to display that openness, and it helps people understand that, oh, this person's actually feeling very, like, nice, I guess, for the best terms that I can think of. So there's that one, and then the third one that I just kind of mentioned is the presence when you walk in. So these three subconscious cues will allow you to have a very enriching and deep, powerful, like, I'm trying to think of the words, because it's kind of hard to describe it in words, but it's the ability to walk in and have that power to gift to people that the other person, or that oftentimes a lot of people wish they had. And this is just, I'm simply just listing actionable steps that can be done literally anywhere, as long as there's another person. Like, we have 8 billion of us, there's another person somewhere, right? So, now going back, I'm gonna head back to the, one more point before I head to the astrogenetics that I was talking about earlier, is that the writing, for a bridge to be able to come over this difficulty of gratitude at first, if it's really that terrifying for you now, even after listening to all this and knowing the benefits of it, it might still be scary for you, and that's okay. Writing about it is by far the best way to cover that bridge between, oh, I'm never going to do it, to, oh, this seems really reasonable. I speak from experience. I've written a few gratitude letters myself, and it cultivates the ability to show your gratefulness without sounding too, like, strange or sounding kind of forced, which a lot of people fear at first when they write gratitude letters. You'll see what I mean when you write one. And just being able to, even if you write it about yourself, right? Even if you just kind of like reflect on yourself and what things you're grateful for, it's like a neural connection, and it opens the ability to bypass the little awkwardness block that most people get when they write. And then you can repeat it over and over again until you get a very strong muscle, and then you're more confident to be like, okay, now I can say thank you to somebody else. So now going back to the point where this was, why did I bring up estrogenics? It was because it was something about unable to be focused, and oh, right. It was the idea of having a present emotion over the future relationships. And I went into how, especially when people feel the present moment and they're just like, they zoop out of it, a lot of times they also zoop into things that are bad for them, particularly, or like was literal studies showing that, like, okay, this is scientifically bad for your health. And a lot of that actually for men, this is more like a men thing, so you can probably skip to the next part, which is, actually this might be would this be the end? I'm sorry, I know I want to talk about somebody else or something else, but I forgot about that point, so I'll have to end on the estrogenics part. So watch this part through, and then you can go apply this knowledge somewhere else. But a harmful thing for men in modern society is estrogenics, which is becoming much more popularized now because of the fact that the infertile rate in males is skyrocketing because of this, which is Estrogenics, I'll give you a basic walkthrough, maybe a couple minutes, is it's estrogen, the hormone, and the NX part is the things that contain it, which the main culprit is plastic. And also things that cause infertility is like you've heard this about like EMF waves or like radio waves and whatnot. These things also cause infertility. So, but other point aside, we're going back to estrogenics now. These estrogenics are often everywhere, especially plastic. Like, one example that I was taught, and it was great for me, is look around the room and see how many things are made of plastic. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think, yep, that's probably plastic. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And almost, the crazy thing is that almost every food that you get is wrapped in this estrogenics of some sort, or some sort of plastic, especially like shit foods, like really junk foods that some people eat, which obviously I don't, but that's a different story. But even like there's some like really good bread up there. Like I have like a healthy bread thing that I eat over like regular bread, because regular bread is doo-doo. But so I have this bread that I eat, and it's even that, like, it's still unhealthy because it's wrapped in this like plastic. And it's just whenever like you eat the food, because the estrogenics leaks out of it, it's kind of like, think about it in the same way that you think about EMF waves about estrogenics. It just radiates and it leaks out of things. And even sometimes, like, I think, no, not books, never mind. Maybe some books are made of plastic, I don't know. But even like cleaning supplies, especially cleaning supplies, like if you go into there, everything's in plastic. If you even go into your fridge to grab a drink, almost always in plastic. So it's finally showing the long-term detriment of abusing plastic. And it's the tough thing about it is that you think, oh, maybe we could filter this out. But the thing is that we can't really filter it out because it's a hormone. Hormones aren't exactly like, it's not like sand. It's not like a physical thing, and it's not like a virus thing where you can kind of like, oh, get rid of it. It's just like, that's not how it works. Because if it did, then you'd be able to get rid of hormones and be able to feel certain emotions all the time. But it's simply not how it works. You have to, sorry. You have to let the ratios balance out in your body so that way it becomes like you stay as a healthy living human being. Because obviously without certain emotions you feel a certain way, and then it causes mental circuits to occur, and then it's a whole cascade, right? Because the mind and the body and this whole thing, there's a reason why it's connected, you know? There's a reason why this whole thing is connected. So with that being said, being grateful is a difficult skill for beginners, but people who practice it more and more, they become much more highly sought out, and they become a very beneficial person to everyone around them, and it allows them to have better quality friends, have better quality relationships, be able to heal relationships that are damaged, and it also helps you enter a positive belief mindset, which will allow you to be capable of a lot of different things that you thought were impossible. So, as always, we are here to help us help them. Goodbye.